Now, the way forward, I want to talk a little bit about that relationship between OEM and suppliers. There's been a lot of discussions already yesterday in the pan-European supplier meeting. So, obviously everybody knows that right now the main source of conflict between our dear customers and suppliers is, of course, the inflation. What I would like to do is first to talk about the difference between, and I don't want to categorize the suppliers in this group, but still, I want to make a difference between what I call a general supplier and a dedicated supplier. I think it's a very important notion that is going to drive my presentation moving forward. To help you to understand what I try to say here, I'm going to use the example of the English breakfast. In the English breakfast, the chicken delivers the eggs. He's involved. Bacon is delivered by the pork. He's committed. Now, I'm asking my dear colleagues suppliers, are you chicken or are you pork? John David? Well, at least I'm going to answer for myself. Thetford is pork, 100% pure pork. That's it. So, in general, when you are a dedicated supplier of pork, you often have a small or mid-sized company, because if you are a big company, there are a few exceptions nowadays. But if you are a dedicated supplier, it means that you are dedicated to this industry, you can't be that big. You only depends on a very few larger customers, because you guys have been consolidating over the last 10 years. So in the US we have about 5 customers, in Europe we have about 7, and that's it. You often deliver customized solutions, so low volume, and you mostly purchase from large commodity suppliers. So what happens? You're stuck in the middle. When I talk to my customer, I'm talking to larger customers. When I talk to my suppliers, I'm talking to BASF, I'm talking to Savic, I'm talking to large corporations, and if I try to get a better price, they laugh at me. That's often what happens. Now there is a way forward, because this is just a statement, and you know, you could ask yourself, what do we do here? Nothing. Just have to move forward. I think that my message here should be that dedicated suppliers and RV OEMs must work better together. That's been said before. And to make the RV actually more attractive and actually adapted to the next generation of vehicles. We talked about electrification, we talked about sustainability. All that needs to happen together between the OEM and the suppliers. It cannot happen just on the supply side or on the OEM side. And then I dare to say that about 80% of the innovation in our industry is coming from the suppliers. And maybe mainly from the dedicated suppliers. So it's a very important relationship. We talked about the new generation of buyers, and I just highlighted here a few things that are driving their purchase motivation. They want modern design, integrated. They want intuitive use. What I mean by that is I often compare what should be an RV to a hotel room. When you get into your hotel, you look for the light, you look for the window, you look for the bathroom, and that's about 10 minutes. That's what it takes you to get familiar with your hotel room. It should be the same with your motorhome. You shouldn't spend 2 hours with your dealers or with the rental company trying to find out the toilet, the refrigerator, the water heater, the airco is working. This is far too complicated. We need to go to a simplification and make this intuitive for any potential user. You know, they look for flexibility. They don't just buy or rent an RV for 3 weeks, 3 days. It is sometimes for 6 months, but it can be traditional holidays or a weekend or even using it every day. that's the new way of using RV. At least that's going to happen more and more in the future. And then I think the most important probably at the end is that zero tolerance, zero default. Consumers today, the new generation of consumers, they really don't want to hear about problems. I mean, the past generation was going every day with a toolbox because they knew they were going to have problems. The new generation, they just don't want to hear about it. And you know that if they have too many problems, they just send the vehicle back and say, we don't want this anymore. So our biggest, probably the biggest challenge of this industry is to make products that don't fail. Because this will not be accepted by the new generation. But we also need to take care about our traditional buyers. They might want the same thing as the new generation, by the way, because they're also changing. But they might also have different considerations. Economy in use, so electrification eventually, comfort, we are getting older, and safety. We talked about it. So we need to take all that in consideration. So I have a humble message from the supplier to the manufacturer. Dear customers, Marco, in the room, that's when you have to do this. You don't want to hear that. Give the power to your engineers, to your product managers, to your marketers. Cost saving remains an important aspect of our relationship, and it has to stay under control, of course, but that I don't believe that it should drive the relationship between the OEM and the supplier. Good news is, and I'm going to show that later on, is that actually by having a good relationship, a constructive relationship, we can also save money. And this is what I'm going to show you now. This is what I call the innovation process, the way I look at it in our company. I believe in co-creation. The earlier we start talking together between manufacturers and suppliers, the more value it has. We can integrate new technology earlier. We can have an original integrated design, so for each OEM, because you don't want to produce the same product. And then we have a design for manufacturing, which is a concept that saves money, creates efficiency, and in the end creates quality. And it comes back to the statement I made earlier, quality is becoming one of the most important criteria for young generation, not only to buy an RV or rent an RV, but to stay in our industry. The biggest risk that we run is we're going to have a young generation using RV for 2 or 3 years. They're going to be fed up with all the problems that they have on all our products, including the Thetford products, and then they will just dump the vehicle and will never come back to our industry. We don't want that. We don't want that. So we create quality. That's what we need to have as a priority in our organization. So that's the innovation process, but it's also, in my view, the cost efficiency process. Not just by negotiating, but by having that co-creation, working together. We talked about the electrification earlier, and yesterday also in the Pan-European Supplier Meeting. OEMs will not be successful in creating all-electric products without the cooperation of key suppliers. Key suppliers will not be able to bring the right product for electrification to the manufacturers without cooperating with the manufacturer. That's a given, a no-brainer. We need to work together because we are on the same boat here, and as early as possible. Last year, John David concluded his presentation by saying, what can we do, suppliers, for you, manufacturers? Now, I dare to push that formula a little bit further, if you don't mind, John David, to what can we do for each other? And that's the concept I really want to introduce today, is we're not enemies for manufacturing suppliers. We work for the same for the same, I was going to say, goes in the end for the same benefit of this industry. So, we, dedicated suppliers, the pork, must take good care of our customers. We must invest in technology and innovative solutions. But we must manage our operating performance to remain competitive. That's our obligations too. We cannot just say the cost is not important as long as we are innovative. That's not possible. We talked about the cost of the vehicle, and please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the price of the RV is not important. It is important. It has its limitations. So we have to manage both, a good balance, make sure we have innovative, creative, sexy products, and at the same time that we manage the cost of this product to remain competitive against other way products, because that's our way of competition. And then we need to invest in a dedicated marketing and service organization. Again, the dedicated concept here is very important. You saw in my early slides that we spend about 10% of our total turnover on this aspect of the organization, whether it's innovation or service. That's what the dedicated suppliers must do in this industry. On the other hand, I think the RV manufacturer has to take good care of their dedicated suppliers. Us. Because we are committed. Because we highly contribute to the innovation process, as said before, but also because we support the end user all along the life cycle of the vehicle. We are there at every stage. We are in the shows, we go to the dealers, we support the marketing activities, we help the consumer when he has a problem, and then we also advise when he's going to replace his vehicle. We are there all along. Now here comes my closing comments. Sonia mentioned 40 years in the industry. I'm a young guy, I'm only 34 years in the industry. So I do have a vision on where this industry is going, or should go. I can imagine that not everyone will agree with it, but this is what my view is. Our RV industry is special, very special. We're not mass production. We're not automotive or highly sophisticated industry, but the diversification, original design, customization, that's our trademark. We don't want to make one product for all. That doesn't work. Because in the end, we sell a dream to our end user. And that's what should become our motto. That's what people want. The users, they're not looking to buy a piece of metal, or wood, or wheels. They are looking at what they're going to do with it. They're going to spend nice holidays with their family. They're going to enjoy the countryside and the freedom. That's what they are thinking about when they buy a RV. Not about the thickness of the wall, or the amount of flush you can use in the toilet. I don't think that's very sexy. And then one more thing. If you go back to the previous point, we cannot cost-reduce ourselves to prosperity. It's important that we move forward, that we create, that we make our industry more and more sexy. There's never been as sexy as now. When I go back to 2013, I was in Tampa, and at that time I was asked to present in the name of the European group. And I concluded my presentation by saying that the main challenge of our industry is to connect the new generation. Because at that time, in 2013, we had an aging population of buyers. We succeeded to connect that new generation. We did it. We are in 2022, 9 years later. That problem is non-existent anymore. Actually, we have too many of them. So that's great, we should think about it. But again, we sell a dream to our end user. And at the end of the day, each end user has his own dream. So let's stay special. Let's stay who we are. Let's keep our DNA as a main motto, as a main driver for this industry. And I predict very beautiful days and a lot of success in the future. Thank you very much.